All right, so we're back with Ken and Mike for My Uncle's Escape Alcatraz, and we have a guest on today, special guest, Nellie Sciutto, correct?
Yes, correct.
I said it right. Good. I'm glad I said it right. And Nellie is a friend of Mike's. Mike, a new friend, because they met on a film set, I believe. And so she's going to join us today and kind of, just started listening to the podcast, and she's got some unique experiences. She's an actress, and she's worked with some of in the Boston area, and and we talk about Whitey Bulger a lot. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But the breaking news that we have on the podcast is that Ken sent this to me today, and we've been talking about this on the podcast for a while now, and we've been talking about trying to get information from the U.S. government on Clarence and John and Frank Morris about the escape, and also because Ken sent the both. Did you send it to both administrations, both Biden and Trump, or did you wait until Trump was in before you sent the book? I can't remember.
No, I didn't send the Biden administration a book, but I did write the president. I did write the attorney general at that time, and I believe the head of the FBI at that time.
Got it. So, anyway, those guys didn't get back to you.
No.
But this administration did.
Yes.
I was very excited to see this formal, and I'll post this. I'll see this in the podcast. I'll post it in the podcast. And it's an official email. Did it come by email?
It is.
Okay, so an official email from the White House. And it's dated. Wow. It's dated today, August 27th, 2025. And it says, "Thank you for taking the time to write and share your story with President Donald J. Trump. After careful review, we have provided the appropriate federal government agency with a copy of your letter for possible assistance or further action." Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was huge.
So you kept on knocking on that door, that big White House door, and somebody finally opened it.
Yes.
And so that's really friggin' exciting and honestly groundbreaking based upon everything that we've been talking about. Because Nellie, I don't know if you heard it on any of the podcasts, but Ken, tell them what your overall goal is with this, trying to get them to open up the case files, the unredacted, and also what you really want to see happen.
Well, first of all, I would love to see my two uncles. I'm not sure they would give them a pardon. I mean, I would love a pardon.
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely go for a time served or a commuted sentence. My mom, who is the only living sibling left out of 14 children, would love to see her brothers pardoned or either, time served. I mean, after 60 something years, I believe we could probably say, let's do a time served. And with that, I would love to see the case closed. I would love to see the rest of the FBI files unredacted. And I would love to see all of the items that the FBI still has in their possession today that belong to the families. All of the letters that the family wrote to John and Clarence when they were in Lewisburg, when they were in Leavenworth, and then ultimately in Alcatraz. And then all of the family photographs that were inside of those letters. And like I said, I was in one of those photographs. If they would just return all of that information back to us, pardon them, commuted sentence, unredacted FBI files, that I would be over the moon.
Well, it sounds like it's cooking in the oven right now.
Yeah, I hope so.
So it's I've
been trying for quite a while.
Yeah, really long. And you weren't even sure if your messages were getting through.
Believe it or not, when I was a teenager, I wrote Ronald Reagan, and he actually responded to me.
Oh,
I don't remember what I did with the letter, but I did write him when in an early part of the administration asking for a pardon. And I remember them writing me back. I remember I was still, at that time, I was still just about to leave the house, living with my mom and dad. I remember my mom saying how cool it was he wrote back, but I wish I had kept that letter now. But now that the Trump administration is actually going to look at it, and I have reached out also to my governor, Ron DeSantis, who is supposed to be getting back to me soon, which hopefully maybe I'll have something else to share with everyone in the near future. But yeah, so if hopefully maybe this is going to put this case definitely to bed for sure.
Yeah. Well, it couldn't have come at a better time with everything that's going on, what we're doing, you know? Mike, what did you think about it when you first saw it?
Well, I knew something was up when you said, I saw "wow" in your little tagline. So I thought, what does it say? What does it say? So I read the letter, and I was stunned when it said that they're moving it forward. It's not just a formality, like, thank you for sending, we'll see what we can do, kind of a thing. So they just sort of politely brush you off because they probably get thousands of these things every day from just people all over the country. But when they said they were going to work with this and send it to the proper agencies to continue working with Ken, I was just astounded. I thought there was little chance that was going to happen. I mean, you have nothing to lose by trying, but that's like saying, I'm going to play the lottery because I have a chance to win. You're like, yeah, 1 in 300 million kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I thought it was the same kind of odds, just terrible odds. But wow, you beat the odds. It's
insane odds. Yeah. It's insane odds. I mean, you just can't. The fact that, when did you send it? You sent it this year, obviously.
It wasn't that long ago.
Well, I sent him a signed copy of the book, maybe like in February.
Yeah, it was February or March.
Yeah, something like that. And then, didn't hear anything. So I sent him another letter. Didn't hear anything. I went online to the White House and I filled out an online request. Never heard anything. I sent something to Pam Bondi. I've sent something to Kash Patel.
We sent an email to Kash Patel.
I have sent something to Don
to Pam Bondi too.
I have sent something to. I mean, I've sent something to a lot of people. I mean, I've written a lot of letters.
Well, listen, the perseverance is paid off.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm very happy with that.
Well, it did. And, just to interject, I was going to say that the whole Menendez brother trial is a big, having them maybe get released and not get released. They were just denied parole, excuse me. And when you think about it, writing letters does help. And I love that you guys, your entire podcast is about letters and saving letters and how important they are. And, I do believe if somebody has time served and they've done their, they've done their time, there's no reason not to hear that. And I really give Kim Kardashian credit for doing what she's doing to get people, recognized if they've done their time served, because, if you commit a crime, it doesn't mean you have to follow the rules, right? It does not mean you're in prison forever and ever and ever, and you're ignored.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I've always said, prison is about separation from your family and a rehabilitation. And,
yes.
They've been separated from our family for over 65 years.
Yeah.
And so to me, I believe that is time served.
Yes.
Actually, probably more so.
But also, they didn't kill anybody. They didn't kill anyone. They used a toy gun.
No.
They robbed $19,000. It wasn't like millions of dollars. They clearly were making sure no one got injured by helping a pregnant lady in the middle of it all. So to me, there's so many more violent offenders today that should be in prison for that amount of time that right. If you look at the facts of this case, like the real facts of this case, you can see like they should be pardoned, or they should be,
Yeah.
Well, and I also think about the timing. The Trump administration has been going out of its way to release these old FBI files, JFK, RFK, Martin Luther King, very high profile cases. And, the Alcatraz escape is not quite that high profile, but it's still in the national consciousness as far as people understand what the Alcatraz escape is. And a lot of the records are, like Ken said, you can go online now and look at the FBI file for the Alcatraz escape, but it's heavily redacted. Names and places and other important information. We don't know what it says. And so it's sort of the mood of the country right now to release these old records and just make them public.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which it should be, right? It should be public.
Yeah, I mean, especially since the fact that we've been told by, former U.S. Marshals that basically that by the time they, their case is done anyway in a few years anyway. When it reached that century mark, it's done.
Yeah.
At their age. So when, they would have been, how old they would have been, I guess, like in their mid 90s.
Yeah, 95,
I believe
94.
Wow.
Frank Morris will reach the age limit before John and Clarence. He was older.
He would be 99 because he was born in
Yes.
1926.
But I mean, all three of them are dead now.
Exactly.
So, why not? I mean, I still do not understand why this is such a huge case compared to any other escape that's ever occurred in the history of, the United States. So why not? What is the big deal about releasing the FBI report? I just do not understand that.
Yeah.
Neither do we.
neither
After
we do.
60 episodes.
It's 66. This is 66. All right. So Nellie and Mike, just for our audience's purposes, just tell us a little bit about how you guys connected. I know you were on a film set, Mike, and then Nellie, you've had some experience in the Boston area working on films and stuff like that. So Nellie, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about it?
Okay, so Mike and I met not only doing this film in Florida called The Unit, but we met because we were together in the Airbnb. So to me, that's the best part about making a film is when you're stuck with somebody in a house. Like we literally had the best talks till like 1 o'clock in the morning one night, right, Mike? And, just sitting around talking and getting to know people. And I've been in the entertainment industry for 35 years. I've been for a long time, since I was 14. And I love my business, and I'm very fascinated by people's stories. That's why I love this podcast about Alcatraz. I grew up in New York City. I grew up really in the 70s and 80s, so I was a little bit obsessed with the Genovese family, the Gambino family, the whole mob thing. Because when I think about being an actor, I think about, when you think about somebody who plays a bad guy, like you want to like them. Right? Like you want the duplicitousness of the character to shine through. And that's how I feel about the mob in general. It fascinated me because you have these people who are doing good things and bad things at the same time, and so I was always fascinated as a kid. Like I remember, a body in front of Spark Steakhouse. I remember that was the big news in the morning before I went to school. You remember all of these things, and Gigante walking around in a robe on the Lower East Side, so he would be considered insane instead of going to jail, and just that's something that fascinates me. And so, as an actor, I've worked with Martin Scorsese, we're still friends, but probably for a period of 15 years, I worked with him because things run their course, and they can't cast you over and over again unless you're Leo DiCaprio. And, Leo was in all the films I did, but I did The Aviator, I did The Departed, I did Shutter Island, I did Wolf of Wall Street, I did a couple commercials with them. And the interesting thing about being on Shutter Island was I had worked with some of the same people on The Departed a couple years beforehand. And so on Shutter Island, I knew I was going to be there for like 6 to 8 months because they didn't drop me. And when people don't drop you, what it means is you're working every single day. So you're not allowed to leave. You're there. You're hired. You're paid every day. You're not supposed to leave set. So I initially got all the drivers because, when you're a big actor, you have one driver, right? One special driver. When you're me, you have whatever driver's available. So I knew the whole team. I met the whole team, and I gave them all Starbucks cards. And as I was leaving a costume fitting one day before we started shooting, one of the guys said to me, Nellie, you shouldn't be so friendly with these guys. They're all fresh out of prison and they all work for Whitey Bulger. They're hiding him in New Hampshire because that's where everybody thought he was, right? They're hiding him in New Hampshire. And I was like, what do I care? What do I care? They're just guys who are driving me. They've gotten out of prison and they're trying to make an earnest living. So I became friends with each and every one of them, but predominantly this guy, Johnny. And Johnny had 3 kids. And he and I connected on that because I was missing my family. I had a 5-year-old at the time back in Los Angeles. I'm in Boston. He's back home with my husband. They were flying my son in with the nanny occasionally, but it just wasn't the same thing. Like I wanted to go home whenever I could. And there were times when, even though I wasn't dropped from the schedule, I didn't work for like 4 days. So Johnny he got canned at one point from driving Martin Scorsese because he drove too fast in the ice. And so he was the last person on set every night, and he would give me my call sheet. He would text it to me or drop it off at my hotel for me so that I knew if I was on the schedule. And I would fly to Los Angeles when I knew I had like 4 days off. I would sneak. I was not supposed to. So I'd fly myself back home to see my family. And we were always in constant contact. And one time I was in LA, and he didn't answer my text. And he always answered my text. And I was like, well, that's weird. Is he mad at me? Did I do something wrong? Am I bugging him too much? I didn't hear from him. And I thought, you know what? I better fly back to Boston. So I flew back to Boston, and I was picked up the next morning at 5 a.m. to go to set. And it wasn't Johnny who picked me up. It was Kevin, who was the head of the Teamsters on the set. And very skittish guy, always looking over his shoulder. I mean, to be honest, you could tell he had been in prison. And I said, oh, Kevin, I was expecting Johnny. And he said, you didn't hear? And I said, no. And he goes, he's dead. And I was stunned. And I said, well, how did it happen? And he goes, well, here's what happened. What happened was they found his wallet and his keys on the dashboard in the front of his car, and his body hanging from a tree, about 200 yards away from there. And I said, well, that doesn't mean, and he said, they're saying it's a suicide. And I said, well, that doesn't mean it's a suicide. We don't know that. And he said, I totally agree. And the minute I heard that, I had just gotten per diem like $1,500. And I said, Kevin, who never really trusted me, to be honest, ironically, I said, Kevin, would you please give this to Johnny's wife for the family, 3 young children? And he said, absolutely. And he goes, would you like to come to the wake tonight? And I said, sure, I'd love to go to the wake. So I had to work that day. I worked through the day. I asked a couple questions. Martin Scorsese was my mentor. I brought it up to Marty, and he was like, do not talk about that with me. Do not talk about it. Like he never got mad, but he literally was like, don't ever bring that up again. And I said, okay, no problem, which is even weirder, right? So I finished work that night, and I go to the O'Neill Funeral Home on the southeast side of Boston. And I remember somebody said to me, you should actually have a car wait for you. That's not a really safe neighborhood. So I had a car wait for me outside, and I walked up the steps, and it was, the kind of thing where you had like drunken Irish guys on the stairs drinking beer. It's not a very formal atmosphere, right? So I walk in and I look around the room, and I realized, like, I saw this guy, Tom Duffy, who was the official cop who worked with us as like an expert on the set of The Departed. I saw him and I was like, oh, that's Tom Duffy. And Tom Duffy had been accused of being involved with the mob, but somehow he played it off and he got away with it. And I realized, I was like, well, that's really interesting. He's talking to some mobsters. Because I've read everything, Black Mass. All the prep I had to do for these roles, they said, read this book. We had experts on set. They told you all the facts. And I started to realize, damn, I'm at a mobster funeral. So I walked up to the widow to say, my condolences. And I'm Catholic. They're Catholic. So, the casket was open. So I knelt down to say my prayers in front of him. And I'm literally praying over him. And I look at his body. And he was bludgeoned to death. Like I'm telling you, I looked at his body, and there was no way to cover all the bruises on his face, on his arms, on his body. There was no way. You could literally see everywhere his neck, that he had been somehow bludgeoned. So that was confirmation for me. Not that I'm an expert, but I was like, clearly he did not kill himself. This is very unusual. And the hair on the back of my neck rose up, and I thought, I've got to get out of this place. And I said my goodbyes. I left, and I really, like I said, I looked around the room and I recognized everybody from the set of The Departed, people from Shutter Island, and I thought, this is just so odd. Why are they all together? And by the way, I had mentioned it to Martin Scorsese, and he said, I'm not going to that wake, and please don't mention it again. So I go out and I get in my car and I drive back home to the hotel, to the Ritz-Carlton Boston. And the first thing I did was I called my dad and I said, Dad, I'm kind of wigged out. And I told him the story. And he goes, well, sounds to me like he was whacked. And I said, that kind of occurred to me too. I don't know what to do about it. And he said, here's what you do in the morning. Make sure you get the obituary. Pick up the obituary so you can see and read it and like send it to me. So I got the obituary the next morning, and it literally said Johnny Buckets Burkett. It was Buckets being his nickname, beloved nephew of Whitey Bulger. And that's when I knew, honestly, that he was whacked. Like, it was just so obvious that, it was all these people involved in all the wrong things. And, Whitey Bulger was, a scary guy in some ways, So anyway, that's sort of my story about what happened on the Shutter Island.
He in most ways, he was a scary guy.
Yes.
I mean, he was a legend in Southie, with him and his gang. I had a similar, I didn't have to go to a funeral or anything, but I spent a lot of time with a lot of those guys that were part of his group and in South Boston, and they come off really kind of likable, really likable
until you write someone's name wrong on a sandwich, and then they start beating the shit out of each other.
Yeah. That actually happened.
What?
Yeah. No, we were shooting there, and we were using Whitey's, former guys and stuff like that. And we were doing kind of like a mockumentary, and that's just one of the things. But one of the guys that used to roll with him, he was a big guy. He was a young, he was like, he was a boxer and stuff like that. But he was a little punch drunk a little bit. And so we were breaking for lunch, and the PA actually wrote his name on the sandwich. But when he gave it to him, he said his name was Jimmy. And he goes, yeah, Jimmy, that's yours. Jimmy, it says right there. And Jimmy thought he was making fun of him. So he got into his face. It's like a young kid. And this guy was big, and like slammed basically took the sandwich, like something out of it, and like smashed it into his face, like almost like a punch.
Yes.
Like it was like that quick of a switch, and it was like, fortunately it was towards the end of shooting. And so we had to go meet with the head of that particular group, a guy named Pat Nee. And we said, listen, we were really worried. We're like, we're going to have to fire this guy. Like, how am I going to fire this guy? I was the EP and director on it. I'm like, what are we doing? We had to call the network and stuff like that. And we were like, we didn't know what to do, because we didn't want any kind of, blowback, because like they're very tight knit, and everybody was getting paid. So we had to fire this guy, even though it was towards the end of the shoot, that we were afraid something was going to happen. They're going to sabotage the shoot or whatever. You don't know what's going to go on, and we're on their territory. We're in South Boston.
Yeah.
And we've been talking and hanging out with these guys for 4 months, and they're telling us all these stories. Pat was telling me crazy stories of where people were and different places in the beach and in the water, and he was a contemporary of Whitey. He was part of his, group. And then they had a falling out, and he ended up testifying against him later on. But it's a scary, they can be very scary. And then one of their big guys, their henchman, the first day on set, this guy was huge. He was built like a refrigerator. And we ended up becoming very good friends after. But like, I went to go fix his mic on his shirt, and he literally grabbed me by the neck and lifted me off the ground. He goes, "Don't touch me," and I had to go like this, like. And this guy's like 6'5",
huge,
and dangling me off the ground, like, "Whoa!" I go, "I'm just trying to fix your mic." He goes, "You don't touch me. Nobody touches me. Don't touch me." I'm like, all right. So so it's like that element there that people don't. It's kind of disguised with joking around. They're always joking around, and they're trying to be the nice guy and stuff. But within a second, these guys can, and we were having problems. I was having problems after the shoot, and I was telling those guys about it, and I was back in LA, and they go, "Rob, you buy my plane ticket, I'll take care of it." And I'm like, "No, you can take care of anything." I go, I'm just venting here. And he goes, well, it sounds like you got a problem. I can take care of it if you want. I'm like, no.
You're like, no, don't take care of it.
Not necessary. But yeah, I can definitely see how that
That's
goes.
almost like one time I was telling Whitey in a letter about this individual that I was having a problem with, and he made the comment. He said, "You better be glad I'm not out, because I would go take care of him for you."
Yeah.
Like, that's okay.
Yeah, you're like, it's okay.
I don't want that.
Yeah, no, it's the law of the land there. It's the Hammurabi Code. You know.
Well, I think it's so interesting that I was hearing from everybody that Whitey was in New Hampshire, and these were all his New Hampshire guys, watching out for him. And it's so fascinating to me that he was really in Santa Monica.
Mm-hmm. Just walking around.
They knew where he was. They knew exactly where he was.
I agree.
Well, one of the things that we've talked about this before is that, again, in the letters that he wrote to Ken, was that he would visit Vegas regularly. And he wasn't disguised. He came as Whitey Bulger, and everyone knew where he was, and they gave him the star treatment. They gave him the nice rooms, and treated him like a high roller there. And nobody ratted him out. Nobody called the police and said, "Hey, he's right here. Come get him." Yeah.
If you know who, do you know who Dana White is? The CEO of UFC and stuff. Mm-hmm. He's from South Boston. He's from that area. And he started a business before he got involved in UFC, and he was doing those boxing exercise classes. And he had, and so they were doing pretty well. And then, when the mob found out that he was the Whitey mob, found out he was doing really well. They came for their taste.
Their cut, yeah.
Yeah, their cut. And he was a young guy, and he was in his 20s. He's like, I don't know what to do. So he's like, you don't get our cut. He goes, there's going to be problems. So he literally that next day got on a plane and moved to Vegas. His mother was living there. His father was in Boston. He moved to Vegas and then became like a boxing manager. He managed a couple boxers, and that's how he got into UFC and all that kind of stuff. But I remember because I worked early on with the UFC with him, and when he told me that story, I'm like, crazy. It's a crazy story. But yeah, I mean, you don't mess with those guys.
No, the movie Goodfellas to me is just such a classic, because Joe Pesci really embodies that spirit of the duplicitousness. Like he's he's so funny, and then he wants to kill you.
Yep. Yeah, it's crazy. But
it's written so well, it's played so well,
that was improvised, actually, that scene, apparently.
Yep.
And then but getting back to like gangsters and Whitey and stuff, I heard something today, and I was watching one of those TikToks where they're talking about gangsters, and they were talking about the Jewish mob, and they were talking about Mickey Cohen. They were talking about, all the Jewish mobsters, how they, went out west and kind of took over there. And one of the things they were talking about, because we, I don't know how deep you are in the podcast, but Ken and Mike have discovered links, obviously to Mickey Cohen, famous gangster, notorious, that connects his uncles, who, they were all in the Alcatraz together, and they knew them beforehand, and how he helped them escape. But one of the things that, then when they did escape, everyone was confused how the FBI reacted to it. And, at the time, J. Edgar Hoover was still the head of the FBI. But in this little mini documentary I was watching, they were talking about how that West Coast mob, Mickey Cohen included, had a lot of dirt on J. Edgar Hoover. Specifically, they had like images of him performing something on another man.
Guys. Yeah, with guys, of course. Yeah.
So that would explain a lot of maybe, looking the other way when these guys, because it was ridiculous how it was like the Keystone Cops when they escaped. It was like they were getting lead after lead, and they were just discounting them. Whether it was Officer Chechi or the boat on Angel Island that they found, and they were just kind of like, they really weren't following up on any of the solid leads, and we couldn't figure. And these guys have went through these files numerous times. We've gone through them, and it just doesn't make sense on how they just let all that fall through the cracks. And then when they ended up handing it over to the U.S. Marshals, 17 years later?
18 years.
18 years later, they gave him
18 years.
Art said they gave him 3 pages of documents after 18 years. So
here's 3 pages.
so that, the mob plays a pivotal role in this story and the escape. But it's interesting how you had that experience, and it seems pretty much on par of what was going on.
Well, I wanted to tell you a little aside. My grandfather, so I'm Italian and Irish, so all the mobsters. And my grandfather came over from Italy, and he actually worked for Meyer Lansky. Speaking of Jewish mobsters, during Prohibition, they were in Jersey, and they would make liquor in the sewage system. And he would work all night, and that's how he made money that he put aside.
Oh.
And he didn't tell us that story till we were older. I was like, why didn't you tell me that? That's the best story ever.
Yeah. That's crazy.
I know.
So, Ken.
Yes.
What's the next step with this Washington thing?
Well, like I said, it all depends on whether or not the governor of where I live, Florida, reaches back out to me, which I'm anticipating that he will be. My next step is, if I can get President Trump to give me audience, I will plead my case to him or whoever gives me the platform to speak it. And so my goal has always been to get John and Clarence either pardoned or commuted sentence.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it's in time when we're in production and we can follow you there.
Most definitely.
Awesome.
I'm like I said, I'm supposed to have maybe a contact with Governor Ron DeSantis Friday. And if I do plan to ask him about would he be interested in joining us on this show. And if he does come back and say yes, I was going to reach out to y'all and let you know that we will be including him on it.
That's cool.
So
that'd be great.
We'll see. I will be honest with you. It's not because I haven't been trying. I've been trying for years.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Writing letters and trying to get the word out and trying to reach out to people, and never got a response until just here recently. So.
That's great. Yeah. No, it is that you got a perseverance. I mean, Cindy had a friend of hers she went to high school with who was wrongfully convicted, and he wrote 30,000 letters.
Wow.
To get
written that many.
to private investigators to relook into his case. And then one answered it, and he was the one who actually found murder weapon and a new witness. And after 18 years he was exonerated. So,
yeah.
If I could just at least have a chance to share with the president or the governor, what the brothers went through in the federal trial, what they went through in the state trial, what the persecution that the family went through after the escape. Oh my gosh. You just couldn't even imagine what the FBI did to the England family. And then, the U.S. Marshals and how they're still today are doing stuff, which is crazy because after almost 65 years, you would think they would just drop the case.
Yeah,
but,
it
is truly amazing what they are still doing today. And I still believe it has a story under the Alcatraz story that they don't want out. And at some point in time, it's going to come out, and we're going to bring it. So.
Do you mean like bad management, that corruptness from within?
I will say this. So once you start looking at the key players that were involved in this escape, Mickey Cohen, then you have Jack Ruby, you have Oswald. You quickly go down. You have the
Earl
Supreme
Warren.
Court Justice of the United States, which is Earl Warren. All of these people are involved in this story. So you start kind of telling me, okay, so Jack Ruby and Oswald come out of Mexico after leaving where? The farm that Mickey Cohen owned in Mexico, which was where the brothers and Frank Morris was currently at that time. And then you quickly think, okay, if Jack Ruby and Oswald actually went to that farm where John and Clarence and Frank Morris was at, and they actually can identify him, how would that change the story of the JFK trial?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that would change it dramatically. And
well,
so
this is why it's so good that those documents are being released.
Yes.
You're right. It's important.
Yes. So, you go back and like I've always said, I swear, I think when we get the whole truth, we will find out, just like, Rob, you said that they always knew where Whitey Bulger was.
Mm-hmm.
They always knew where John and Clarence.
Absolutely, yes.
It was a convenient to keep them at that place as long as they never came back to the United States.
Because we don't know what they knew, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, what kind of Pandora's box would they have opened?
Right.
Oh, they would have opened a large box. Think about it. Why in the world would Mickey Cohen help my two uncles?
Well, that's what we asked.
Yeah.
That was my first question to you, Ken.
And
Why these two guys from Florida, these two farm boys, poor farm boys, why would they pick them? Why? How would they get connected?
Yeah.
Why in the world would the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, Earl Warren, who, by the way, is the one who did the JFK files, right? I mean, he's the one who did the Warren Commission. Why in the world would he be the one to sign Mickey Cohen to come out of Alcatraz? The only person who's ever bonded out of Alcatraz, ever. Why would he sign his bond to come out of Alcatraz?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Nellie, are you aware of that at all?
Yes.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? I mean, we asked
crazy
former federal agents about it, and they said it's never been done before.
No.
Yeah.
But, mobsters have relationships with the FBI. I'm not going to say who, but I was involved with someone in the Charlestown gang, a mob, in the Irish mob in Boston when I was living there. And that family was very heavily involved with the FBI as well as their mobster activities.
Yes.
So there's always this relationship of like,
like they're all working together, right?
Yeah.
Like I did a docuseries for AMC that aired last fall. You can see it on Amazon, and it's called The Tailor of Sin City. And I bought this man's life rights 8 years ago. This is related, just so you know. I bought his life rights 8 years ago. It took me that long to make anything happen. And long story short, he was a tailor to the stars in 1970s Vegas, Marilyn Monroe, Elvis Presley, etc. And then he started designing for the Chicago bunch. And then he got pushed up the line and he started working for Pablo Escobar as his personal tailor. And then he became the biggest cocaine dealer in Vegas in the 1970s.
Wow.
And somehow he did what you just said. So he avoided jail because he was playing the FBI and the mobsters off each other. He was working with both of them.
Yeah, that's what they do. And then they end up either dead or they do it for the rest of their career.
Yeah.
It's one or the other. But
I think he sort of lost everything in the end, and that's when I found him. But it's just fascinating to me because he literally played them against each other.
Right. I mean, I think it's one of the part of the chess game that they play.
That
Because
was,
they know
that
it
was one of
exists.
the things. That was one of the things of all of the letters that I corresponded with Whitey. I got the impression, over the years that I could communicated with him, was that these mobsters had this code of conduct between criminals. And one of the biggest things that Whitey always stressed to me was that he hated a rat. He hated someone who would rat somebody else. I mean, he would just some of the words he said was amazing, but he kept going back in and expressing how that he was not a rat. Even though they painted him out to be one, that he was somehow working with the FBI. He said the FBI, he had the FBI on his coattail.
Yeah.
He was using them, not the other way around. And, but the FBI during the trial made it look like, oh yeah, you were our informant, and you ratted out some of these other family members of other, mobsters. And that's one of the reasons why he was killed in prison, because it was a payback. They thought other mobsters thought he had ratted them out, and that was the last thing he ever wanted.
Yeah.
To go down as a rat.
Yeah. Well, getting back to Nellie with The Departed, that was the whole movie was about that.
The last scene in that movie is about.
They see that
Exactly.
walking on the edge of the window.
I mean, I just think it's an open secret. Everybody knows that. Like the mob, if you're in the mob, you're also dealing with the feds. I mean, it's just they cross paths.
Yeah.
Yes.
And like we talked about before, his brother, who's still alive, was a politician.
Yes. Yeah.
So that
they were probably helping each other out. I mean, I know the politician who became the chancellor of UMass. I thought that was fascinating. Like, tried to stay out of trouble, but he obviously he knew more than he should, because eventually he was let go from his chancellorship at UMass.
Yeah, and he said in a 60 Minutes interview, he goes, "If my brother needed my help, I would help him. I love my brother."
Exactly.
So it's like you had two sides of the coin there.
Mm-hmm.
But even in Sicily, like my dad's from Sicily, like the people I met there when I went back as an adult, they're cop over here and mobster over here having dinner.
Yes, exactly. They're just doing business. They're doing business.
They're doing business. So to me, like this whole thing with Mickey Cohen makes sense. The tentacles reach very far to the highest levels of government, but Mickey Cohen was very powerful.
Yeah, and he had
undoubtedly him and Whitey Bulger were friends. So that's something that Whitey shared in one of his letters. He was good friends with Mickey Cohen.
I have a question about the letters because I haven't read them. Personally, I've heard you guys talk about them on the podcast and stuff. Tell me what side of his personality comes out in the letters. Like, was he a gentle guy? I mean, I'm just curious about his writing style.
I got the impression that I kept him at a distance. I never gave him my personal address. I used the P.O. box.
Okay.
The very first couple of letters, he was kind of standoffish from me. But as I started sharing stories about John and Clarence, and he really became. I felt like he opened up to me. He even told me, he said, start calling me Jim. All of my friends call me Jim. He really started kind of sharing things with me that I felt like, if he was out, I'm not sure how good of a friends we would have been, but I could actually see us being friends.
Yeah.
Of course, I wouldn't do some of the things that he did.
Yeah,
they're very charismatic. These guys from South Boston. I mean, like I said,
they are. You really. It takes a minute because you're like, wait a minute.
I became very close with these guys. We were eating. Even if we weren't shooting, we were hanging out, and we would go out, and then you just forget that they have this past.
Yes.
That they
present.
Yeah, or present. Yeah, exactly. So
I would say he was very dedicated too. If he gave a promise to someone, he would go to his grave before he would break that promise. Even, and I told the story before. He told me about how he got to Alcatraz. A lot of people think, oh, he went to Alcatraz because he was a bad person. And it wasn't. He went to Alcatraz because he refused to turn in a guard who was helping him in an escape attempt in Atlanta. And I'm like, going, you really think about that. He refused to turn in the guy that most prisoners hate. And because he was so dedicated to his word, he decided, you know what, I'll go to Alcatraz before I ever tell you this guard's name. And he never would tell me the guard's name either. He was that dedicated even up until that point. He would never tell you who it was.
And
well, there is this loyalty between them. I mean, the Sicilian Pact is like, you don't mess with that.
Yeah.
If you're, you don't, they have this, and the Irish too. It's not, I mean, it's just across the board. If they promise or their loyalty, I think that's their word.
I wonder also if that, he got maybe some preferential treatment in Alcatraz from some of the guards, because I'm sure they knew why he was there. Everybody knows why anybody is that comes into a prison.
Yes.
I'd like to ask Nellie a question.
Mm-hmm.
So you were sharing earlier about the times that the chauffeurs, the drivers on the sets were basically Whitey associates of one kind or another, or mob associates. I'm curious, did they share any stories about Whitey with you about, their former boss at all, or any kind of old stories of things that they did when you were just driving with them?
No, they would not share those stories, but they made it clear that he was a nice guy. That's all. And that they were, because I spent so much time with them, and they knew I was not going to say anything, just that, he was a good guy, and that's why he was hiding out. And that's it. That's all I got.
And did
they're not going to tell me too much, right?
And then when you were in Boston, beyond the funeral parlor, did you go to any of those other places that they, were their hangout spots, or did they?
Well, I was about to say, I was like, we're all talking about Boston and the South End of Boston, and my favorite place to go is, because my son's in college in Boston now, is I love to go to the Fox and the Knife, which is the old triple O bar.
Yeah.
That's now like a very farmed table. It cracks me up because it's a farmed table restaurant.
Oh yeah.
Like they would
But
say,
that was
the old neighborhood. Oh, look at all the yuppies are here now.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's just funny because it's so elegant, but all I can think of as I walk down the stairs to go to the bathroom is, oh, this was where he hung out. His office was down here. What went down here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's
So we all need to have a dinner there. We all need to have a dinner at the Fox and the Knife.
People understand how small Southie is. It's very tiny.
Oh, when I went to Emerson, it was like you couldn't go down. I mean, this was in the late 90s. You couldn't go down there. You just couldn't go, it was not what it was when we were there.
Yeah, it was nicer
later, but it's changed so much.
And my son is at Emerson, so that's
is he? Oh, great.
Yeah,
I got my master's at Emerson. Nice.
Yeah. So, and I love it. He's gone. He's there now because he runs cross country and track. So he's there, and I'm going this weekend to move him into an apartment.
Oh, that's great. It's great school. Yeah. I love Emerson.
I do, and I love the location. It's great. And the funny part is, my son, when he visited me when I was on set on Shutter Island, we stayed at the Ritz-Carlton, which is right behind it.
Yeah, which is right
behind it. And I'm like, you were here when you were 5, and look at you now.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love Emerson. Well, good luck to him. He should do his last semester out here. The LA program is fantastic.
Yes, he's doing that. He's doing that senior year. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, this is interesting. And then Ken, like I said, that email from the White House has still got me kind of flabbergasted, but
I'm not surprised. I mean, we knew it was going to happen at some point. I think the timing is all, yeah, we did. The timing is all coming together right now. So it's going to happen.
Yes. And like I said, hopefully maybe Friday I'll have even better news to share.
Yeah. With Governor DeSantis. Yeah.
That's really exciting.
It is very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
Ken has persevered. He will.
Oh, both of them. Ken and Mike. They've been like rolling through this thing now.
Well, I can't take credit for this one. This is all on Ken. He did it.
It's momentum.
Well, the both of you have really done an amazing job on this whole book and everything that you guys have done. So
I think to me, the start of the momentum happened is when we did the podcast from Alcatraz. I think
so too.
Right after that, things started to cook.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's been, because everything started happening.
I was shocked that we even got the book on Alcatraz. So
exactly,
I think that's
kudos to Mike for pushing that.
Exactly, that's amazing.
Well,
Nellie, have you ever been to Alcatraz? Nellie?
Yes, I have.
What I was going to say was one of the things I'm mindful of is when we were in Florida when we were doing the shoot, and we had the kind of this ground zero for the shoot was the Airbnb that was kind of our meeting place, and
Yes.
We had an extra room, so she stayed there and just chatting into the night. And, when we started, we just sort of stumbled onto this conversation. We didn't plan for it. It was just, we were just kind of sharing our stories and our background, and Alcatraz came up, and, of course we just immediately just latched onto it because you said it at the beginning, how you just the kind of the mob culture, the mob lifestyle and the stories, and especially East Coast is more of a mob. Northeast than it is West Coast. That's more LA area than it is in the Bay Area where I am.
Right.
And just the immediate connection to Alcatraz, and just like hearing the stories that, I didn't share everything, but just some of the stories that I shared that you just really connected with. And, hearing the Whitey Bulger and Mickey Cohen connection to the story that a lot of people don't know. They know the Clint Eastwood movie. They know, that these guys meet up in prison. They just hatch a plan to escape, and it's just kind of on them, and they make it happen. Whereas they had a lot of help and a lot of resources. And also, we haven't even talked about Bumpy Johnson, another monster from the New York area who was part of the
There's so much.
It just makes no sense. It's like it was like the harmonic convergence of like all the big mob figures in that one prison.
Well, you had three major players, three mobster kings, so to speak.
It's crazy.
That were, in the same location at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, and as I talked to Mike, I started picturing it because I've been to Alcatraz a few times and I've walked all over it, and you think about the big hallway, and then you think about the area outside. And when you started telling me all about the boat, Mike, I was like picturing where it would have been, and I don't remember if that's on a tour, but I kind of pictured where the boat. I think it is on the tour, but I pictured where the boat was, and by the shore, and how they made this boat and hit it, and then they escaped. It's just very fascinating.
Yeah, it's an incredible story. It's an incredible story, and that's why we keep on talking about it. We've been talking about it for like a year and a half now.
Yeah.
And we're going to be dealing with it even more on a micro level with the documentary series, and we're just excited to find out more information now, because there's still more information to discover.
Well, it's a great story. You guys have such a great story, and you have such great connections with the letters, etc. I just think it will be a real hit. So I'm excited for you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thanks for coming on, and thanks for taking the time to share your stories with it. Fascinating stories. And we'll talk to you soon, guys, next week.
Okay. We'll meet at the Fox and the Knife. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks,
All right,
Nellie.
guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.